I thought I was going to be debating Reza Aslan, but it turns out I'm debating Nostradamus. Because this guy knows everything. And, he knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows exactly what is possible, exactly what is impossible, and he's extremely categorical about it. You're quite wrong, of course, about militaries being necessary. No, on this one little point. He said a vibrant military is necessary to be recognized as a state. Have you heard of Costa Rica? Because it doesn't have a military, chose not to have a military, and no one would deny that Costa Rica is a state. I think Palestinian leaders have been pretty interested in the idea of a non-militarized state with a robust border and security force, but not wasting their money on tanks and planes and toys for boys when they could be spending it on schools and hospitals in the manner that Costa Rica has, such that Costa Rica actually has universal health care, whereas its neighbors in the rest of Central America have armies and poverty to a much higher degree. Now, of course, you begin your dismissal of the notion of a two-state solution in the manner that all people who dismiss a two-state solution do, by simply saying it is impossible, by making an a priori assumption that every administrative, demographic, and topographical and infrastructural change imposed by the occupation at the moment is irreversible. I mean, that's at the core of your argument, first and foremost. And I think history doesn't support that. Walls go up and walls come down. Settlements are put in and settlements can be evacuated. Now, we know they can be evacuated in this case. Why? Because, in fact, they were evacuated in Gaza and in the northern West Bank. So the question is not, can an Israeli government evacuate Israeli settlements? The question is, which settlements will they evacuate, under what circumstances? Is it possible to create a structure in which they would do it? And I want to step back for a second and say, beyond all of this just sort of categorical assertions about what is possible and not possible, let's get a little framework for evaluating that. Political realities are produced by the forces that can produce outcomes. Right? In other words, political forces, economic forces, military forces, and other kinds of forces that produce outcomes. They're not produced by wills and ideas and whatnot. I think that it's exceptionally important to recognize that what Reza has talked about in terms of a loose confederation between Israel and Palestine along, say, Bosnian lines. I mean, I don't see anything to do with Northern Ireland about this. That's a very confusing analogy, because really Northern Ireland is part of the UK, the Republic of Ireland is part of is its own state. They're all part of the EU. It's under those terms that it's because of the European Union that people move freely around, not because of the Good Friday Agreement. So a little more rigor would be helpful. Bosnia is a potential model, I suppose. Although in Bosnia, what you really have is sort of it's within the context of this broader post-Yugoslavia. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the forces that produce outcomes in this context actually can't produce the outcome that Reza is talking about. I mean, I don't understand the mechanism by which we would go there. He said, I will be asked what's the mechanism. And normally speaking, of course, the proponents of the one-state idea really would angrily reject what Reza has outlined, actually. They would say, you say give up the right of return? How dare you? You say that there'll be a confederation and that there won't be a single democratic solution as in South Africa. I mean, you're for one-state advocacy, this is as much heresy as what I'm saying, frankly. So what you're proposing is actually pretty close to, I would say, original to you. And it's a little bit more defensible and easier to imagine than a South Africa style scenario. But I'd still say that what you're suggesting is actually not going to be acceptable to the Israelis, and they will say no to it, and that they have the power to say no to it. However, what you point out as the factor that's going to produce this inevitable outcome, that is to say the demographic challenge that Israel faces in the occupied territories, actually militates us back to a two-state solution. You're right that the number of settlers has expanded enormously during the past 25 years. It's not